Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for this important educational topic. My name is Josh Allen. I am a registered nurse and I'm the Director of Clinical Services for Commonwealth Senior Living. We're here today to talk about aging, isolation, and depression. And really, we want to explore the connection between these three and talk about some tactics and techniques, some methods we can use to help stop the cycle of isolation and depression, particularly for older adults. To really understand the issue, we're going to focus on three key areas. We're going to start by talking about the effects of loneliness, what loneliness can do to an older adult. And what you'll see is there are both physical as well as psychological impacts of loneliness on older adults. We'll look at the effect or benefits really of staying connected, how they can help to reverse or prevent some of those negative effects of loneliness and what we really think of as the loneliness solution. When we talk about being lonely or loneliness, at first, it maybe doesn't sound like as big of a deal as it can be. In fact, most of us, when we think of being lonely, we might think of simply being bored or, not having anything to do. But really, loneliness in older adults, it's about the lack of connectedness with other people. As they experience changes in life, as loved ones pass away, spouses perhaps pass away, family members may move, out of state or out of the area. And it can start to really impact the connection in that person's life. Those effects of loneliness are not just psychological or mental impacts, but truly physical impacts. We know, according to the CDC, that loneliness and isolation have a direct connection to serious health problems, such as trouble walking, bathing, dressing, or climbing stairs. A general difficulty with independence. There's actually a 29% increase in the risk of heart disease and 32% increase in the risk of stroke connected with loneliness and social isolation. An isolated older adult has a higher risk of what we call mild cognitive impairment. These are some of the changes in memory and cognition that we might see prior to the development of a true dementia. These older adults who are lonely or socially isolated also have a higher risk of depression, higher blood pressure, as well as even negative impacts on the immune system and the function of the brain. Really, we sit back and think to yourself for a moment. Have you seen any of these kinds of changes or declines in a loved one in your life? And think about how they might be connected to that lack of connectedness or the isolation they're experiencing. We also know that loneliness may lead to an older adult not eating or sleeping well. They may not want to participate as much in exercise or other physical activity. They might be less likely to go to their regular doctor's appointments or take their prescribed medications. There's an overall impact on that person's quality of life, both emotionally, mentally, and physically. In fact, in the worst case scenario, we know that loneliness can even bring on premature death. Now, if we know that these impacts of loneliness can have such a detrimental effect on your loved one's quality of life, well, then of course it stands to reason that being socially connected should be able to help improve it. It should have the opposite effect. And in fact, we have research that proves that exact point. Studies have shown that social engagement for seniors is associated with these benefits: reduced depression, improved cognitive health, longevity, better cardiovascular outcomes, and in fact, even greater immunity to infectious disease. Patricia Smith Churchland is a Canadian-American analytic philosopher. She's noted for contributions to neurophilosophy and the philosophy of the mind. She's UC President's Professor of Philosophy Emerita at the University of California, San Diego. It's her research that really helped to prove these positive effects of staying connected. And I think this is a great quote from her. We long to belong, and belonging and caring anchors our sense of place in the universe. Think about that for a second. Think about that in your loved one, in your own life. That so much of our quality of life and our motivations in life are about belonging and being connected to the people around us. And we now know through research that connectedness can have a direct impact on their quality of life mentally, as well as you can see, health benefits. So what can you do if your loved one is struggling with chronic loneliness, what we like to think of as the loneliness solution? We've all experienced isolation and loneliness to varying degrees over the last year. This has been a unique time for our entire country, and particularly for older adults who, as a way to protect themselves from the pandemic, may have cut off connection with people around them. But there are some great ways that we can break that cycle. Number one, as much as possible, face-to-face time. It is hard to replace the opportunity to be together. And we know in our communities now, through our diligent efforts around COVID-19, we've been able to reinvite visitors back into our communities, particularly moved along through the use of vaccines. So as much as possible, we want that direct connection with our loved ones. Now, sometimes that's not possible, not always because of something as serious as a pandemic, but just simple life, being out of town or maybe living a little far away from your loved one. There are other ways to connect. Something as simple as a phone call, picking up the phone and making sure you make that connection with your loved one. Sending emails. Really, in the last year, we've seen a huge increase in the use of video calls, whether that's Zoom, like we're using today, FaceTime, Facebook Messenger. There are a variety of ways that we can accomplish that, and something we will assist our residents with when living in our community. You can also try things like setting up a regular coffee or tea date with a friend, inviting someone to have a meal with you, or even just taking your dog for a walk in the park where you can find people to chat with. So many of these things were impinged upon during the pandemic, but we know, again, through our efforts recently, through the vaccination program, we've been able to bring so much of this back. And this is something we want to encourage older adults in our lives to do safely as much as possible. Find ways to reach out and connect. Group activities can also be very beneficial. That sense of being part of something bigger, feeling like you're making a difference for the people in your community. That can be such an important part of that fulfillment, and it can also help to create so much of the social connectedness that we're talking about. So what might that include? It could be volunteering through a nonprofit group, a school group, a civic group. We find that many seniors find tremendous benefit in volunteering programs, that opportunity to give back. For a retiree who maybe feels like they're missing some of that opportunity in their day-to-day life, volunteering can help to bring that back for them. Certainly, many seniors benefit from attending local churches or synagogues, participating in group study projects or special service projects. It could even be something as simple as a regular bridge or poker night, a book club, or a sewing group. Creating those opportunities to go out and connect with people and at the same time contribute to something beyond yourself. In fact, what we find in our senior living communities is the number one reason that seniors begin to look into senior living is to address loneliness. Again, looking for that opportunity for connectedness. In some ways, our communities are like being on a cruise ship, to a popular vacation. There's a sort of nonstop opportunity and options for activities, entertainment, dining, and engagement. Our communities, they provide ways for seniors to meet people, bring new people into their life and connect with new friends. We provide events, activities, and dining options. Our robust activity programming in our communities are a great way to make those connections and provide that additional fulfillment that seniors are in search of. They'll find that they have neighbors of their same age group, and we also have added support should they need additional help if something happens to their spouse. The opportunities in a senior living community go so far beyond care and services and really create that social opportunity for engagement that we've been talking about today. We appreciate so much all of you joining us for this educational topic today. I hope we've given you some really important things to think about in terms of battling the impacts of loneliness, ideas you can take home and use today with your loved ones, as well as understand some of the opportunities available in a Commonwealth senior living community. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.